Thanks for joining me. I'm Emily Vukovic. You're watching the Weather Network, and these are the developing stories we're following for you this hour. Extreme cold continues to the west. Lake effect starts today. And the Atlantic storm, it's bringing it all. We'll talk about that in detail. Right across the country, it is still incredibly cold, especially to the west. Look at these temperature values. It's minus 20 through Regina, but feels like minus 30. Feels like minus 4 in Vancouver, and minus 32 is what it feels like through Winnipeg. It's practically balmy when you look at the east. Now, we do have some active weather on the way across the prairie provinces, just due to some upsloping winds. We are going to see about 10 to 20 centimeters just north of Edmonton. Along the foothills, about 5 to 10 centimeters, and through Calgary, closer to 2 to 5. Unfortunately, that cold, it's going to be sticking around. We still have that extreme cold warning throughout Winnipeg, all the way over towards Brandon. Temperatures, they're plummeting, and they're going to stay that way for the next couple of days. Feels more like minus 32 being. We've got west-northwesterly winds firing up, and that is going to be picking up a lot of fetch off the lakes. Of course, still not frozen, so we're seeing a ton of moisture coming through. Anywhere from Goderich all the way up towards Port Elgin, over towards Barrie, up through Huntsville. Now, Toronto could see a light dusting from this for the most part, but certainly not a heavy accumulation of snow. That's going to stay closer to the lakes. This trend is going to continue right through to the end of the weekend, so just keep that in mind if you do have travel plans. All right, it has been very active throughout eastern Canada. Let's now check in with Nate Coleman. Yeah, all right. Thank you so much, Nate, for being such a trooper and really giving us a feeling as to what it's like throughout parts of Atlantic Canada right now. Now, this low, it is going to be tracking its way through Quebec. We are going to be seeing some snow, but only a couple of more centimeters likely for Quebec City. We've already picked up about 15 centimeters, about 11 centimeters through Montreal. We're going to be seeing that heavy snow taper off through northern and central New Brunswick. We're going to be seeing a bit of a break through Atlantic Canada for Thursday, but then another system is going to be ramping up for Friday. Now, this low is going to be staying offshore, which I think is good news, but we're still going to be seeing some snow through Nova Scotia. Until then, here are the snow totals. We're looking at about 10 to 20 centimeters for northern and central areas of New Brunswick. It's too warm down towards southern Halifax. We're seeing mostly rain, and then through Newfoundland, we're going to be dealing with about 5 to 10 centimeters of snow. Hi there, I'm Emily Vukovic. Thanks so much for joining us here on the Weather Network, taking a look at your top weather events for the next couple of days. First things first, right across the country, we are still holding on to that cold right across the prairie provinces. We've got temperatures bringing in very cold snow throughout areas of Ontario. We've got lake effect firing up with very chilly northwesterly winds. I'm sorry, I have a bit of a cold, so things aren't coming out the way they're supposed to. Snow squalls firing up Wednesday right into Friday, so this is going to be a couple of days for us. That Arctic air, it's going to start to migrate east, so not only are we going to be seeing snow, but a lot of cold air coming our way. And in through Atlantic Canada, we have got a series of storms, literally like a conveyor belt, one after another, hitting parts of the Atlantic. And in through British Columbia, because we don't want to leave you out, that cold outflow continues. We are going to be seeing well below seasonal values, and we do have some snow on the way for the lower mainland. All right, it is time now for Share Your Weather. All right, Shediac, New Brunswick, such a beautiful shot. Doesn't that just kind of look like a postcard, seeing the snow on the ground? Well, we certainly have good news and bad news. The bad news is that, yeah, you're probably going to need more salt because we do have more snow on the way. The good news is that a lot of that Arctic air, it's going to be pushed right back to Russia. See you later. We don't want you anymore. This high pressure is really going to help spin it that way. So it's a bit of an abnormal pattern track, but regardless, I think a lot of people are going to be happy. Temperature pattern, we're going to return to seasonal for a couple of days across the prairies, but then temperatures will plummet again with that Arctic air returning. And with that, we are going to be seeing some snow, about 10 to 20 centimeters for Hinton over towards Edmonton, and down towards the south about 2 to 5. All right, in through eastern Canada, it is cold and it is windy. Here's Jeff Harrington. All right, thanks so much, Jeff. We do have some squalls kicking up Wednesday to Friday throughout southern Ontario. We've got about 15 to 30 centimeters on the way through northern sections of the province, through Parry Sound, down through Port Elgin. Down through London, we could see a trace. Same deal for Hamilton and Toronto, but for the most part, all that snow is going to stay closer to cottage country. In through Quebec, it is going to be another snowy day today, not as intense as yesterday, where Quebec City picked up about 15 to 20 centimeters of snow. And Atlantic Canada, you've got decent snowfall amounts. We're looking at about 10 to 20 total centimeters through northern and central New Brunswick, 5 to 10 through Newfoundland, and let's not forget about the rain. All right, let's take a look now at your long ranger. All right, so through Ontario, we do have a couple of weak clippers coming through. We are going to be seeing one moving throughout the day on Friday. This one is going to be bringing us some light snow. It's certainly not going to be heavy. We're looking at pretty much just a dusting. But then as we get into mid next week, this is where things could start to intensify. But look at this. We're going to see another push of warm air. So getting into that warm sector is going to be giving southern Ontario primarily rain, but snow to the north. It's Wednesday, January the 4th. I'm Emily Vukovic. Thanks for joining us. Here are today's developing stories. Extreme cold continues in the west. We've got lake effect kicking it up today through the east. An Atlantic storm, well, it is bringing it all. It's staying put, doesn't want to go anywhere. They've used like 8,000 pounds of salt, like just insane amounts. And unfortunately, you're probably going to have to use some more because cold air is sticking around for you. And we've got some snow on the way. Now, looking at this, we've got that upsloping wind. That's going to be bringing in Edmonton over towards Hinton, about 10 to 15, possibly up to 20 centimeters of snow. That snow through the lower mainland. Yeah, we're going to be seeing that kind of through Friday and then another wave on Saturday. We'll talk more about that in a moment, but first, provinces. And we do have extreme cold warnings in place. Yoho National Park is in one, and we are seeing Brandon and Winnipeg also in an extreme cold warning. Throw in those winds, and it is going to feel more like the minus 30. So incredibly cold air. We do have some weather alerts for Ontario. We've got snow squall watches and warnings in place. Out to Quebec City. Ontario and Quebec, so blowing and drifting snow could certainly be an issue. This low is going to depart. It is going to move its way out. We'll see clearing conditions behind it. And we've got another system coming up the eastern seaboard. Speaking of the east, let's check in with Nathan Coleman. Hi there, I'm Emily Vukovic. Thanks for joining us. Taking a look now at your top weather events right across the country for the next couple of days. As you can see, a lot of the action is towards eastern Canada, but we don't want to leave you out in the west because you do have a system on the way that is keeping the cold air around, and we are going to be seeing some snow through the lower mainland. We'll have details on where and when coming up in just a few moments. Below seasonal temperatures, they're going to continue for the next couple of days, and to the east, snow squalls are certainly going to be the big story. All right, let's check in with Chris Murphy now for your It's Snowing Somewhere segment. We're looking at a couple of millimeters there on that vehicle. Now today, the system is really going to ease. It's going to depart. We've got a little bit of snow still falling for areas around Quebec City, down through Montreal, but as you can see by tonight, we'll start to see it clearing out. Same deal for you in Atlantic Canada. We are going to be seeing a bit of a clearing trend, but all right, well, we've got cold air that's not only sitting over parts of Manitoba, but it is going to be migrating its way east. So we are going to be feeling the chill through Ontario, Quebec, and Atlantic Canada. Yeah, that's something you certainly want to avoid. So make sure you're out there clearing your sidewalks. That cold air sticking around. It's not as cold as it has been, but we're going to see another blast of Arctic air after we kind of get that brief return to more seasonal values today and tomorrow. And then here it comes. We are going to be seeing this by the weekend, that Arctic air returning. It's going to be frigid all the way towards the east. We also have some snow on the way. We've got high pressure in place, but we're still seeing some upsloping winds, and that's going to give us about 10 to 20 centimeters through northern and central Alberta. Now to the east, it has been windy and it has been wet. Poor Nate Coleman. I'm sure it has. Very gusty conditions, wind warning in many areas. Thank you so much, Nate. We'll check in with you we'll check in with you again in a little bit. Wow, this cold is really taking a toll on me today. Okay, we have this area of low pressure. It is going to be moving out of Quebec, so easing that snow accumulation. I know yesterday we saw about 15 centimeters plus ice accretion with freezing rain. Another weak system moving in through parts of Ontario by Friday. You can just see that on the bottom of your screen, but until then, lake effect is going to be the issue. And eastern Superior, eastern shores of Georgian Bay and Lake Huron, about 15 to 30 centimeters, certainly not out of the question. A couple more centimeters for you through parts of Quebec before that low departs, and in through Atlantic Canada. Very similar story until Friday, where you do have a new system on the way, but until then, we're looking at about 15 to 30 millimeters of rain and some heavy snow. Joining me now, meteorologist Dr. Doug Gillum. It's time for the long range, and I have to admit, Doug, even though this map is showing cold temperatures, it's certainly pretty.
Yeah, it certainly is. You know, often when one part of the country has below seasonal temperatures, someone else has milder temperatures. Yeah. That's not the case this weekend. Everyone near or below seasonal, take a look at Sunday. That's the coldest day of of the long range for Toronto and southern Ontario.
Wow.
A high temperature. These are high temperatures of -10.
Okay, so there's that. Now let's talk about the weather that's involved, because we don't want to linger on the negative, right?
Well, the weather is fairly quiet across much of the country. We do have some lake effect snow that'll impact London on Sunday, but the weather is active on both coasts. Let's start off in Atlantic Canada. We'll back things up to Friday night into Saturday. A system tracking offshore will bring snow to Nova Scotia, snow to much of Newfoundland, but a very close call for the Avalon. St. John's will see some snow, potentially a changeover to some rain. Stay tuned for updates on that, then a brief break. And then our next system, I think the models are too far out to sea. I expect to track closer to the coast. If that happens, this will impact all the Maritimes with a significant winter storm, bring some mixing to Cape Breton, and certainly have a high impact on Newfoundland, but once again, the Avalon could change to rain.
All right, and then as you can see, not a lot of action right across the prairie provinces until we get to the coast of BC. And this freezing line is a little tricky, isn't it?
Yeah, we'll start out near sea level with some snow and some strong winds Saturday night into Sunday, but then rising snow levels up to about 1,000 meters means the lower mainland will see mostly rain from the system. Ski areas see snow. But as we take a look at the temperature pattern next week, we get a reinforcing shot of Arctic air in the prairies. You stay below seasonal right through the end of the week. But quite a brief warm-up. Southern Ontario, Toronto up to 5 degrees for the middle of next week, and even some rain on Wednesday.
Everywhere else, incredibly cold.
Yes.